Before we get on with the podcast, I wanted to let everyone know that I have 3 books available for sale on Kindle. Recommended Reading for the True Conservative, Bad Democrat, and Evil Liberal. All of them available for $3.99. And now, on with the podcast.
pizza, you could just call a guy and he'd just make it and bring it to you. And it's just so much easier now with online pizza. Before you can eat it, you gotta build your pizza profile, right? You gotta come up with a strong pizza password. Don't want anyone hacking into your pizza account, getting all your pizza information, switching your toppings. Shows up at your door. Cabbage and beet. Hang on a second here. I didn't order a cabbage and beet pizza. Who would? Oh, the Russians must have hacked into my. They must have gone past my pizza firewall.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, August the 25th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, liberal treachery, and Donald Trump. All that and more when I get back. God, give us the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
Ashley Webster. He's in for Stuart. Ash.
I am indeed. Good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. I am Ashley Webster in for Stuart Varney today. Let's start with the markets. We have got a rally. The Dow and S&P up about a third to 0.5%. The Nasdaq up 229 points. Let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield moving ever slightly lower, down 3.5 basis points at 4.66%. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the two-year. The two-year down 1.3 basis points at 4.21%. Bitcoin, by the way, briefly back above $80,000 this morning. It's backed off. It's now at $78,988. Meantime, gold is at its highest level in 3 months, although pulling back just a bit, down $9.40 at $46.87. And oil, oh yes, oil moving lower, hitting a one-week low as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent launches Operation Economic Outcast, a new push to isolate and squeeze Iran. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says he is leaving the door open, though, to more military strikes. Crude right now, West Texas, $82.14. Okay, coming up on the show today, Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed faced tough questions over past comments. Jesse Waters grilled him on his policy positions, but El Sayed dodged. We'll get into that. Canada is expected to announce retaliatory tariffs in response to President Trump hitting them with new 50% tariffs on roughly $20 billion in goods. Lydia Hu will have a live interview with Ontario Premier Doug Ford later in the show. Don't miss that. Plus, a New York City resident says he was hit with a $52,000 second home tax notice after living in his Upper East Side home for 30 years. That homeowner, he's miffed, as you can imagine, on the 10 o'clock hour. We will talk to him. Plus, Gavin Newsom is listing his California home for $7.5 million, complete with a 5,000-bottle wine cellar and a personal wellness oasis. How's that going to go over with the DSA, huh? It is Tuesday, August the 25th, 2026. Varney.
And that was Ashley Webster, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. When this happens, when people you thought knew you begin to act distant or suspicious, the temptation is to react in kind. You might consider gossiping in return, manipulating people's opinions, or bending the truth to restore balance. But the moment you do that, you enter the same moral territory that the liberal inhabits. You start to reflect the very traits you despise in them. And in so doing, you confirm the twisted version of you that the liberals have worked so hard to create. Holding to universal values does not mean being passive or allowing yourself to be a doormat. It means responding from a place of inner consistency. Since honesty is a value, you speak the truth, even when it would be easier to lie, to gain favor. Since loyalty is a value, you avoid betraying others, even when you feel betrayed yourself. Since fairness is a value, you don't stoop to character assassination, even when your own character has been dragged through the mud. These are not weak positions. These are positions of immense strength. The truth is, values cost you something. They are most meaningful when they are hardest to uphold. You will likely face moments where your commitment to your values makes things harder in the short term. You may lose friends who believed in lies. You may miss opportunities to defend yourself in ways that would make you feel vindicated but compromise your ethics. This is the price of principle. But while the liberal builds a house of cards based on deceit and control, you build something solid. You may be standing alone for a while, but you'll be standing on ground that doesn't collapse under pressure. Your consistency also becomes your credibility. While people may be temporarily swayed by manipulation, they will eventually begin to notice patterns. They will see who reacts with dignity and who relies on deception. Over time, consistency and values have a way of revealing the truth without you having to force it. People remember how you made them feel. They remember who stayed calm under pressure, who refused to strike back in anger, who acted with integrity even when no one was watching. This doesn't mean you need to justify yourself endlessly or seek moral perfection. It means that in each choice, what to say, how to act, whom to trust, you ask yourself whether the decision reflects who you truly are, not who they say you are, not who they want you to become, but who you know yourself to be at the core. That knowledge becomes a source of unshakable identity, especially when your external identity has been hijacked by lies. It takes courage to be principled in the face of manipulation. It requires strength to hold on to yourself when others are trying to pull you apart. But the person who endures with integrity becomes untouchable in a deeper, more profound way than any social approval could offer. But when the storm passes, and it always does, you're not left trying to pick up pieces of a broken self. You're left standing with something intact, something whole, something unbreakable. Clarifying the truth when a liberal has turned people against you is a delicate but powerful act. It is not about defending every accusation or engaging in endless battles over what was said and what wasn't. It is about maintaining a quiet, consistent commitment to reality, even when others are invested in illusion. The liberal strength lies in confusion. They operate in the shadows of miscommunication, half-truths, and emotional chaos. The more uncertain the environment, the more power they hold. Clarity then becomes a direct threat to their influence. But clarity doesn't come through emotional outbursts or impulsive confrontation. It comes through precise, careful action. When you're under attack, your instinct may be to explain everything at once, to present all the evidence, to expose the narcissist in front of everyone. But that can backfire. People tend to shut down when overwhelmed. They're more likely to believe the simple emotionally charged story they heard first in a complex defensive encounter narrative. So your goal is not to convince everyone immediately. Your goal is to let the truth emerge piece by piece through grounded, intentional expression. This means choosing your words carefully. It means resisting the urge to overshare or justify. When you speak, you do so calmly, sticking to verifiable facts and avoiding speculation about the narcissist's motives. You're not trying to diagnose them or destroy them. You're simply telling the truth as you know it. That distinction is critical. If your tone becomes bitter or accusatory, people stop listening to your message and start reacting to your emotion. But if you remain steady, clear, and focused, people begin to notice the difference between your composure and the liberal's theatrics. Sometimes the best way to clarify the truth is by doing nothing publicly and letting your consistent behavior speak for itself. While the liberal talks loudly, often, and dramatically, you live your life with quiet integrity. Over time, people begin to see who truly aligns with their words and who doesn't. People remember how they feel around others, and the contrast between someone who manipulates and someone who stays true becomes harder to ignore. This is a slow process, but truth doesn't need to be rushed. It needs to be rooted. Clarifying the truth also means being clear with yourself when you've been manipulated or smeared. It's easy to internalize the distortion. You begin questioning your own intentions, wondering if you could have done something differently, doubting your memory of events. That internal fog is exactly what the liberal is counting on. So your first act of clarity must be directed inward. You need to ground yourself in what really happened. You might write it down, talk it through with somebody you deeply trust, or even seek therapy to process the psychological impact. The goal is not just to be believed by others, it's to believe yourself again. In some cases, you will be given an opportunity to correct the narrative directly with those who've been misled. When that happens, do it without bitterness. Focus on honesty, not persuasion. Some will listen, some will not. That's not within your control. What's within your control is how you present yourself and how you respond when people come with questions. You don't need to tear the liberal down to lift yourself up. All you need is to stand firmly in truth and refuse to let it be buried under someone else's manipulation. You may find that the truth alone doesn't immediately restore relationships or repair damage, People believe what they want to believe, and sometimes the comfort of the liberal narrative is more appealing than the complexity of the truth. But over time, clarity cuts through illusion. It might take weeks, months, or even years, but falsehoods cannot sustain themselves indefinitely. Thank you. So I was going through a book called The Dictionary of Legal Terms. I came to an entry called Champerty, Champerty. And the entry reads, in common law, an unlawful agreement between an attorney and his or her client that the attorney will sue and pay the cost of the client's suit in return for a portion of the damages rewarded. Today, the prohibition against champerty survives only in a few jurisdictions and only in modified form. So that means that contingency fee legal arrangements at one point in this country and perhaps elsewhere were illegal. People talk about how many lawsuits we have, and it seems like we have nothing but frivolous lawsuits. I contend that it may very well be because of contingency fee legal operations. People are suing because they don't have to put up a contingency or a down payment, or what do they call it, a retainer. That's it. They don't have to put down a retainer. And so I think a lot of suits, particularly class action lawsuits, would simply go away if people had to pitch in and pay a retainer, and that the attorney was not allowed to take a cut of the reward, because that's the way it is now. 30 to 40% in the United States, 40% if it goes to trial, 30% if it's a settlement, goes to the attorney right off the top. So how much better off would our society be if we didn't have contingency fee arrangements between attorneys and their clients? Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from Mornings with Maria.
We're borrowing now $93,000 every second over the last 12 months. We're in real trouble. We're pushing up bond prices. Look at the 10-year yield right now. A lot of that, those pricing is because the United States government is on a borrowing binge. And how do we convince the bond markets that we're serious? Well, you're going to burn one of the, in many ways, last reconciliation budgets. We have to do parts of the SAVE Act. We absolutely need that. But we also need to convince the markets that we're actually going to start to at least make a small attempt to get our fiscal house in order.
Yeah, and did you say we're borrowing $93,000 every day?
Seconds.
Arizona Congressman David Schweikert, right there, one of the first members of Congress to raise the flag about rampant government spending. Now the national debt surpassing $40 trillion for the first time in history. Joining me now is the man himself, and he is the chair of the Joint Economic Committee. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning. You're not particularly popular when you spend day after day, and for my case, 15 years, talking about debt deficits and the demographics that are actually the driver of U.S. debt. And look, when you're over $90,000 a second in borrowing, and the numbers in the future actually get uglier, and it's demographics. We, as a society, we're getting older, and we haven't had enough children for decades.
But it's spending. Let's be honest. I mean, it's cut to the chase here. And that's bipartisan. It's Democrats, it's Republicans. It is just out of control spending. And one of the things that voters said in the 2024 election was they wanted to see D.C. spend less money. And has that happened, in your opinion? We've gone through DOGE.
Well,
we've gone through
but here's
other
one of the
cuts.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one of the great difficulties is when the majority of spending it, and so in less than 2 years, over 50% of federal spending will go to those 65 and up. So the earned benefits of Social Security, Medicare, and then interest consume or are close to consuming half of all federal spending, and they would consume the majority of tax receipts. And it's really hard to get up in front of an audience and say, in many ways, your government is an insurance company with an army.
You mentioned when you were speaking with Maria.
Well, okay, so I suppose this goes on and on. The issue here, one of the issues is that there's no context. They keep acting as though this just sprang up overnight, as though they just discovered this themselves. Oh my God, we're in debt. We've been in debt for a long, long time, and the reason for it is because of liberal policies. The liberals were the one that created the economic system that we now currently employ, and that is Keynesian economics. It's a paper-based economic system, as opposed to the gold standard. If we were on the gold standard, we wouldn't be talking about the government being in this kind of debt, because it is impossible for the government to do so. But with Keynesian economics, the government can. The other issue here is the big banks. Everybody wants to, again, talk about the markets. He talked about the bond markets. And there is no such thing. The bond markets are not a sentient life form. The bond markets are moved, and they're moved by people that run the big banks. That's the chief weakness of the Keynesian economic system, is supposedly we were going to give all the economic power to the government, the federal government, who will run our economy and make sure that we don't have these big boom and bust cycles and we don't have these great depressions, et cetera, et cetera. All we ended up doing was giving power to the big banks, because it is the big banks that move the market. Back in a minute. Thank you. So another thing about the Maria Bartiromo deal is the idea of cleaning up liberal messes. Again, liberals made a mess of our economy by going ahead and creating Keynesian economics. And so now we're, 93 billion, quadrillion, whatever, in debt, and with the interest multiplying every day. And it is the Republicans that are trying to deal with that. It is Republicans that are worried about it. The Democrats, and particularly liberals, don't seem to care. And this seems to be a pattern politically, is that the liberals go ahead and make a mess, the Republicans clean it up. Another example is the messes that are made in the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago more specifically, the state and city of New York, and in California, and Los Angeles more specifically, where there's sanctuary states, and then you have the influx of illegal immigrants and all the problems that come with that. And those are the places where Donald Trump has sent ICE agents to go looking for the bad guys. The place where he should have gone was to the red states. He should have gone to Florida and Texas. Texas first and foremost. Send the ICE agents in there. Leave Illinois, California, and New York alone. Those people created their own problems. Let the liberals in those states fix their own problems. Back in a minute.
This is one of the most misunderstood phrases in the entire Bible. The fear of the Lord. Ask what it means, and many people will answer, it just means respecting God. Respect is part of it. But if that's all it means, why did Moses remove his sandals before the burning bush? Why did Isaiah cry, "Woe is me, I am ruined"? Why did the Apostle John fall at the feet of the risen Christ as though dead? The Bible is describing something far greater than ordinary respect. In the Old Testament, The Hebrew word is yirah. It can mean fear, but it also carries the ideas of awe, reverence, and overwhelming recognition of God's holiness. It is the response of a finite human being standing before the infinite Creator. That is why Proverbs says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." True wisdom begins when we see God as he truly is, holy, sovereign, and perfect. Isaiah shows us what that looks like. When he saw the Lord seated on his throne and heard the seraphim crying, "Holy, holy, holy," he didn't celebrate. He cried, "Woe is me, I am ruined." The closer Isaiah came to God's holiness, the more clearly he saw his own sin. But then a seraph touched his lips with a burning coal and declared, "Your guilt is taken away, and your sin is atoned for." The fear of the Lord didn't drive Isaiah away from God. It prepared him to receive God's grace. The same pattern appears in the New Testament. Peter fell before Jesus and said, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." Biblical fear is not the terror of a slave before a cruel master. It is the awe of someone who finally sees the holiness of God. It humbles, it transforms, and it leads to worship. The fear of the Lord is not living in constant dread that God will reject you. It is living with such a profound awareness of his holiness that you never treat him as ordinary. Because the more you truly see God for who he is, the more you will trust him.
And that was that. Back in a minute.
Years ago, we took a wrong turn and lost our purpose. We lost the strength that makes Americans who we are. If we dared to speak the truth, it was called hate speech, and our values were labeled shameful. That's when everything we care about fell apart. We surrendered our borders, our paychecks, and our courage. Our patriotism was called toxic. Men could beat up women and win medals, but there was no prize for the guy who got up every day to do his job. Now we're being asked to settle for the way things are. And we're wondering if America can make a comeback. We can, because we've done it before. When we get knocked down, we don't stay down. We get up again. We fight. We fight. We fight.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
And it's the people who are making America great again.
Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that no one is neutral and that the government has no rights.